Hey everybody, welcome back to Gritty Girl Podcast. It's your girl Amanda, and this is probably a long awaited episode for some of you. Some of you that I have talked to, and some of you that have kind of requested that I talk about today's topic. So, as the title says, we're going to talk about GLP 1. GLP 1. You're seeing it all over your social media, your news feed, because there's all these studies, and it seems like everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, right? Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory today, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts, the good, the bad, the ugly. This isn't going to be just a promotion like, I think everybody should be on these meds. I think everybody could benefit from it because we do know there's some instances where GLP 1 therapy is not appropriate, okay? Before we dive into it, though, I do feel like I need to give my little medical disclaimer so some of you yahoos can't come after me and sue me. Just know that the content in this podcast, it's not intended to substitute professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please don't hit up my DMs, even though I talk to a lot of you about your therapies, about update. I get updates from people. I don't diagnose and I don't treat, okay? I am a nurse. I'm not your nurse. So keep that in mind. More importantly, I am a person. I'm a person. We're all on different paths. So protect your medical and your mental well being. And always, always, if you're even considering seeking this therapy for any reason, I want you to get with a provider. Okay? Now, that being said, later on in the episode, when I start talking about where I'm at now, you're probably going to come at me and be like, well, where's your provider? I'm going to get there. So sit down, grab your popcorn, your Alana, your coffee, whatever it is that you need to listen in, and buckle up, Buttercup, because it's going to fly. Like I said, the good, the bad, the ugly. So GLP 1s. Let's start off with what are they? If you've done any research or you're on one or you know anyone that is on one, it stands for glucagon-like peptides, okay? It is a naturally occurring hormone in the body, in your gut, okay? It deals with insulin, blood sugar regulations, satiety, however you want to say that, how full or how hungry you are. Plays on the hunger hormones, okay? These drugs, so the people that are out there saying, well, we don't know what the long term effects are, these drugs have been on the market in practice, FDA regulated and approved for 20 plus years for treatment of diabetes, okay? When they were treating people for diabetes with these drugs, they were also finding some other benefits, some other things were starting to happen, and they were like, whoa, people are actually reporting weight loss with these meds. Like, what is going on? Um, so years later, you can research it, you can look it up, but years later, they're like, oh, well, there may be some off-label uses pertaining to in the obesity medicine realm, right? So now, fast forward, you have medications. You have GLP 1, so like your semaglutide, that would be your Ozempic Wegovy. You've got your GLP GIP, so your dual agonist, Tirzepatide, so that would be like Mounjaro, Zepbound. And then there's a third tier that's kind of being investigated right now that is not currently FDA approved called retatrutide. For those of you that know that sometimes on social media and out there in mainstream culture, it is nicknamed Retta or Rita, because certain apps will not allow you to talk about these drugs, which that's just crazy to me. I get the energy and I get the understanding behind it because there's a lot of people out there on these apps and these platforms that are giving unsolicited medical advice. They are saying, hey, you should do this with this med. Hey, you should go on this dose. You should mix this with this and stack this, because we now know that peptides, it's not just the GLPs now. Okay, you got a lot of other stuff. A lot of people are stacking, and don't come in my inbox and ask me about stacks and the other things. I know very little about the other peptides that are out there. Okay, I'm researching and I'm studying and I am learning more about some of those, but I am not stacking anything. Okay, where I'm at with my current journey, and I'll get with you guys on that in a minute. Um, Kind of some backstory though, before I got to where I'm at now. I have a very long standing history of obesity. Okay. Obesity runs in my family. Chronic disease runs in my family. Diabetes, heart disease, cancer, you name it. It's in there. Okay. There's some addiction that runs in my family. Um, so genetically speaking, I'm kind of at a predisposition for developing chronic diseases myself. So if anybody wants to come in my inbox and question, what makes you think you needed this, da 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 da, I've literally done it all. You can name any diet, any drug. This includes antidepressants, this includes over the counter stuff, this includes the late 90s, early 2000s craze of like the low calorie, low fat thing. I've done it. I've been there and I've done it, you guys. Um, what happened back in 20, so I lost my dad in 2018 to liver cancer. Okay. I became very, very unhealthy, very big, very fast. A lot of that was grief. A lot of it was just coping. A lot of depression, a lot of anxiety was going on, and I was not coping well. And then there were some other life things going on. I was not coping well. So I got to looking in my notes in my phone a few minutes ago, and I was like, okay, where exactly was I at in that time period? And I, for some reason, was actually keeping notes. Of course, I had tracker, like my Fitbit, stuff like that. But I got to looking back in May, I wrote it down. May of 2019. So that was roughly a year after my dad had passed away. I was at my absolute heaviest, aside from when I was pregnant with my son, which that's about how unhealthy I had gotten after I was pregnant with my son. I was 251 pounds. I had, some of you know the story, some of you don't. I had gone to my yearly gynecology appointment in May of 2019. I was doing the dreaded thing of having to get my blood pressure taken, hop on the scale, all the things, and I was just going through the motions with life, like, whatever. I don't know what happened. I don't know how the light bulb turned on, but like stepping on that scale, seeing my blood pressure, 150s over 90s, that was it for me. That was my tower moment. That was the wake up call. That was, oh shit, this is way different than anything you've ever dealt with before. Because before that, I was overall in pretty decent health, other than anemia, vitamin D deficiency, which come to find out, all that can be tied to obesity too. So, went to that appointment. I got into the office after they got my blood pressure and stuff. Got in to do my exam. Couldn't even do what I came there to have done. I was so distraught. I was in so much emotional distress. We could not do the things that I was there to have done. And my doctor just kind of looked at me and was like, you're in pretty good health. We can table some things, reschedule some things. I do not want to do any type of exam while you're in this state. And I remember getting in my car, driving the whole way home. It was a 40-minute drive, driving the whole way home and just bawling. Like ugly, ugly crying. What am I going to do? What is going to happen? What is my next step? I see another diet coming. I see starvation coming. I see not good things coming from this visit. Okay? Got home, did some research, and I'm giving you all the very shorthand condensed version, and I'm getting to the GLP-1 stuff. So just, if you're still here, just sit tight with me. For those of you that are listening and have followed me for years on socials and done the weight loss and the dieting thing, you probably know where I'm going with this. That was about the time that I plugged into a program, and I'm not going to name the name of the program because I'm not trying to have people come after me and sue me. But it is a program that prides itself on very restricted eating, at-home workouts, and at the time, there was I'm going to use the other word, mentorship. It was a pyramid type thing. And again, if you know, you know. I'm not going to sit here and just shit all over it and say I didn't have results, because I did. That that was the catalyst for me jumping into and getting serious about my health and wellness. I had purchased a set of adjustable dumbbells, which I still have. I still have my Bowflex adjustable dumbbells. I still use those for weight training, so that was a very good investment. That was a $300 investment, and I've definitely got my money back out of that. Um, I did that on and off for about a year. I did get results. I initially dropped probably like 20 pounds or so. Um, but what I noticed, there was some icky things going on within the business model. There were some icky things happening with my eating, with my patterns, and then the weight started yo-yoing. And anyway, got out of that. And then over the course of the next few years, I actually I was diagnosed with alpha gal syndrome. If you haven't watched my alpha gal episode, go back and watch it. It's having beef with beef, I think is what I called it. But alpha gal is a mammalian allergy caused by a tick bite. So I still to this day, that was in 2020, I still to this day, I don't eat beef and pork. I do dairy now. I'm a little bit more lax and flexible with my eating, but I still stay away from pork and beef. Um, I actually had hired a coach. I worked with her and discovered the world of coaching and reverse dieting. She is fantabulous, and she actually helped me break through some limiting beliefs I had about my body, my nutrition, my metabolism. And she ended up feeding me more food, and I ended up losing like 10 or 12 pounds and a bunch of itches, which led me into the world of coaching. Got into coaching, opened my business. That's where the grit and grace and gritty girl came from. So that's kind of how all that got started. So, yes, over the years, over the course of the past 6 to 7 years, I had lost weight, gained weight, lost weight. I did the whole just back and forth, right? When I was in my coaching business, I coached and I helped a lot of women, and I helped men too. I had some male clients that actually had great success, and it was without the use of supplements. And I was very, very much against the GLPs, because at that time, that's kind of when they came into the space as for weight loss. Like, that's when people started catching on and started taking the shot. You saw the skinny shot everywhere. And even to this day, that kind of makes me cringe, because I was so uneducated. I was so uninformed, but I knew people were taking these shots and they were losing weight. I also knew I had clients coming to me back then that were previously on those injections. They were getting results, and then they were hitting that dreaded plateau, and so they were kind of getting with me, and I'm like, look, you have to freaking eat. Based on what you're telling me, based on your food journal, based on your tracking, how you're feeling, your biofeedback, like your sleep, your sex drive, your mood, your inability to lift weights, like all the things I looked at. And I still pay attention to those things with myself. But I was like, your biofeedback sucks. This sucks. That sucks. No wonder you're plateaued or stalled out. Like, you're basically starving. And I could not wrap my brain around why anybody would want to shoot themselves up with a drug so that way they wouldn't eat. Like, why would you want to have such an unhealthy relationship with food? I myself had an unhealthy relationship with food, so I struggled even more with that mindset. Like, why would people want to do that? So I noticed that there was a decreased interest in coaching and what I had to offer, and there was just more interest in people pursuing the shot. They wanted this med. Like, everybody was going crazy for it. And I even at one point made the comment several times. I was like, okay, I'm losing business because people are taking the shot. That is what it's boiling down to. People that are not diabetics are taking these meds, and people that don't have true weight problems are taking these meds. Like, what the hell is actually happening? Like, it was so frustrating. So, coaching business, I can do a whole episode on that too. I ended up I stopped taking clients, and I had to shift gears. My mental health was starting to progressively get worse, and I had to shift gears and start taking care of me. And it just started looking differently. I had job changes. I had some family stuff going on. Like, everything was just crazy. So I'm going to very much fast forward to late winter of 24, early spring 25. I just, something, and I to this day, I really don't know brought it on, but something was telling me, like, you need to research these meds. Like, actually stop passing judgment, stop talking shit, start, like, understanding what is the driving force, what is the mechanism of action behind these medications. What is making people go so crazy, dropping 20, 40, 50, 100 pounds? Like, I want to know how this works and what's going on. So probably January of 25, I started like really diving in and doing some educated research. I started talking to people that had used these medications. I started getting on different social media platforms and like really getting educated info on these meds. And I was like, okay, so people are like really loving their life now. People are really loving how they feel. They're getting results. I'm also seeing people abuse them though. I was seeing people that had literally had no business on these meds that were just basically on it to starve and get skinny. And I've never been behind the whole get skinny thing, get skinny quick thing too. My goal with working with women and even myself, I've never said I want to be a size 2 because that's not me, that's not for my frame, that's not for my headspace. So I was really having a hard time understanding it and I was getting very frustrated. The more research I'd done though, I was kind of like, what would happen if I just tried it? I started kind of getting that itch the more research I did, and I was like, maybe you need to just give it a month, give it 2 or 3 months, because I know as a nurse, sometimes medications can take not a couple days, not a couple weeks. Sometimes their effectiveness takes hold months into therapy. And so I kind of got to looking and I was like, okay, what would my options be? Because here was my situation. I definitely had the BMI requirements. I definitely had a comorbidity. I didn't have diabetes, but I had the BMI and I had a history of obstructive sleep apnea, OSA. With Zepbound, that is the GLP GIP, the Tirzepatide, that is actually an FDA approved use. It's having the high BMI and having, it was also being FDA approved for obstructive sleep apnea treatment. And I was like, okay, I doubt that I'm going to have any luck just going to like my PCP and getting it because I don't have the diabetes. And I was right. I ended up being right on that. So I started looking at compounding options. I didn't like the price tag. I didn't like how expensive it was, but I started reading reviews. I started talking to people. I started educating myself and being like, okay, if you try this for 3 months and it's an absolute flop and fail, then you tried it and you know that this is not something that's for you. This is not something that is in my plan. That's not something I'm aligned with. So I was cool with that. I got connected with a provider locally. So I'm in Central Arkansas for those that are listening that may be out of state. And I found a clinic here, not a med spa per se, but they do just general wellness stuff too. Um, they do compounding, GLP therapy, and stuff like that. I made an appointment, went and saw them, and you better believe, I had a book of questions. I came with questions after questions. Sat down, of course, I didn't meet any of the exclusion criteria. I don't have a history of, it's the thyroid one. I'll have to look that one up again. But it's medullary thyroid cancer. I don't have a history of that or a family history of that. I don't have a history of gastroparesis, which gastroparesis, it's kind of like slowing of your gut motility. Your stomach has a hard time emptying. As you put things in your stomach, it's supposed to empty out into the small intestine. People with gastroparesis have an issue to where that part doesn't work correctly. And so I didn't have a history of either one of those. And so I kind of looked at my provider, who's a nurse practitioner, and I was like, okay, I think I want to do this. And it was very simple as far as like getting it up and going. They partnered with a compounding pharmacy out of Texas that actually mailed it to my house. And so my appointment was on a Wednesday. I got my box in on a Friday. Of course, I was all excited. But you guys, I was scared shitless. I was so scared because even now, I don't take medications for anything. And I never had been a good medicine taker, much let alone giving myself injections. So I was like, what the hell am I going to do here? I got the med and I was like, ooh, I read somewhere where you should try to take it at nighttime in case you get nausea. Like, I was scared to death of puking my guts up and just being sick. I gave myself a shot, just went on with my night, and everything was good. Everything was good. And that was in May of 2025. So this is June of 2026. So I'm a year in. And long story short, I'm down about 53 to 54 pounds. Okay. Some people lose more than that. Some people lose less than that. Everybody's journey is different. So when you hear that, before you start comparing yourself, be like, well, Amanda, I'm on it and I've only lost da 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 da. Your body, your structure, your function is very different from mine. Mine is very different from yours. That is the first thing I want to tell people is you've got to get out of the comparison thing. And that's with anything you do, with your family, your job, your finances. Don't compare yourself to people. That is the number one thing that I see people do when they start on this journey and they screw it up, is they compare and compare and compare. Um, what I noticed my first 2 to 3 months of therapy, I had like crazy energy. Like, it took a couple weeks for the energy to come around, but I was like, wait a minute. I feel like going for a walk. I feel like getting a workout in. And I noticed that I was not as obsessed with what's for dinner tonight, what's for lunch, what am I going to have. When they talk about the food noise, I noticed that almost within days to the first week on the food noise. The energy came within weeks. And then I want to say my first week I lost like 7 pounds, but a lot of it was fluid. I had so much fluid and inflammation, and I know that's a hot topic for conversation too. There's a lot of people saying, "Well, your body's not inflamed. Your body can very much be inflamed from fat. It can," and I had a lot of it. So the initial week or two was definitely. I don't think it was a true fat loss. I think it was just like fluid and just getting rid of just accumulated like trash in my system. I firmly believe that. My skin had cleared up. I noticed that I was more intentional with the food choices that I was making. I noticed that I definitely struggled if I didn't prioritize protein and fiber and water. I drank water like it was my day job. Like, that was my only living thing, was to drink water. I was so scared of dehydration. I was so scared of puking my guts up. In the whole year that I've been on the therapy, I have not puked. I have gotten nauseated one time. And it was in the initial 2 weeks, and it was just a quick kind of wave, and then it was gone. I combated that by, I do what's called pre-gaming, or I did. I don't really do it now, but drinking electrolytes, loading up on protein the day before and the day of. Um, all those things are helpful in heading that off if you're on it or thinking about doing it. But the big thing that I really wanted to talk about on here that I don't feel like gets talked about enough is how these GLP-1s change your brain chemistry. Like, and I've talked about this on a previous episode. I have borderline personality disorder. Um, with that comes some other comorbidities too, like depression, anxiety. I had binge eating disorder. I was very much a binge eater. The first month of this, I definitely saw changes pertaining to choices, pertaining to the ability to tell myself no to some things and say yes to other things. Whereas before, I would have really fought with myself. I would have fought with myself, well, you don't need that, or this is a bad food choice, or we put so much morality on food choices. I was bad today. I had pasta. I was good and I had a fruit salad at lunch today. Like, your food should not have morality. It's not good or bad. And so I noticed there was definitely, it was like somebody turned the knob down, like turned everything way down where I could just, okay, I can think, I can function, I can do my job. I had just started a job. I work remotely, and I wasn't stressing out. I wasn't like nervously like overeating because I was, out of sorts starting a new job and everything. Like, everything just, while everything got dialed down, it was also like somebody flipped a light switch on, and it was like, oh, Is this what normal people do? Normal people talk about things other than food. Normal people, when I say normal, none of us are ever normal, but this is what people do when they're not obsessed with food and dieting and losing weight and focused on what the scale says. I'm going to be so for real with you guys though. The first 2 to 3 months, I was like hell bent on weighing like every couple days because I was like, did I lose another pound? Did I lose another pound? And that is so not the way to be on this journey. But I get the excitement because when you start this, you're so hopeful and you're so optimistic. You're like, I gotta watch this scale. I gotta see the scale go down. And it is exciting. But what's going to happen later on, it's going to become a lot less about the scale and more about how you feel and about your body composition changes. It's so much more than the scale. And I know you guys have heard me say that before, and you've heard other people say it on other platforms. But really and truly, when you start to notice how much better you feel, that food doesn't control your life, that you're not beating yourself up because you made a bad choice, and you don't feel like shit for going out to eat with your family, you can't put a price tag on it, you guys. That's all I'm saying. This is my experience, and I'm not telling you if you're not on it and you're considering to do it. I'm saying this is what happened for me. And I was not expecting the shifts in my mindset and my brain to be that pronounced. I was just thinking, oh, you're going to lose weight, you're going to hate food, you're not going to want to eat, you're going to be sick all the time. Say water. It's all the time. I just feel like I was more intentional. I was more intentional with my thoughts. I was more intentional. I was able to be more present with my work. I was able to be more present in my home with my family. And I wasn't beating myself up. And that to me is something I have never experienced on any medication, any weight loss program, anything. I've never experienced anything like this before. Um, if I had to say, well, people are like, well, what changed? What was it that changed? It was my damn brain. My brain changed on this medication, and you can't convince me otherwise. So there's a lot of people that are still very anti GLP-1, or they have a limited support on it because their whole thing is, well, all it does is make you eat less. You can do that on your own. Some of us can't. Some of us can't. Some of us can't just eat less and move more and get results. Some of us have been drowning and struggling for years, and this has kind of been the switch for us. So there's a lot of judgment. There is a lot of stigma. There's a lot of romanticizing going on too. There's a lot of people that eat like absolute trash on these meds, and then they get pissed off because they're not getting results. They're like, I don't understand. I went up on my dose. I'm going to tell you something else too, friends. The highest dose, so I am on Tirzepatide. That is mine. I'm on the GLP GIP. That's a dual agonist. Tirzepatide has been amazing for me and my body and my journey. Higher doses isn't always the key. It should not be your objective to move up in dosing as fast as you can to lose the most weight. I started out on 2.5 milligrams, 2.5. Eventually I went up to 5. And then just this past, 6 months, I think it was 6 months ago, yeah, I decided to jump up and try 7.5 milligrams. While I felt like that was good, and initially I did see some things happen, I also experienced something called anhedonia, and I want to caution you on that. So this is a play on words. There's an allodonia, ALLYHODO. It has to do with your skin and feeling like your skin's on fire. That's very common. What I'm referring to is called anhedonia. Anhedonia has to do with your mood, depression. It literally is like a major downshift in everything. It kind of makes you not really give a shit about anything, and you have to be careful with that. People like me, people with borderline personality, people who already have kind of a I don't give a crap attitude, this is going to exacerbate that a little bit to where literally nothing bothers you. And while that sounds good on paper, it's not always the ideal situation. So what happened when I went up on my dosage to the 7.5, I experienced depression that I have not experienced in a long time. Almost like when I had postpartum depression after I had my son. I couldn't work out. The thought of slinging weights around, and you guys know me. I loved weight training. Weight training was huge for me. I wasn't a cardio bunny, but I loved slinging weights around. I couldn't lift weights for months. I was eating, but not as much as I should be. I was not getting my protein. I was not getting my fiber. I probably wasn't hitting my calories. Um, but in my brain, initially, I thought, oh, well, this is a higher dose. This is supposed to happen. No, no, that is not healthy. That is not normal. That is not okay. So I did back in February. I met with a provider that I saw years ago that specialized in hormone health. And I had a conversation with him, and I was like, "Look, here's the deal." So at this point, when I saw the provider, I should probably backtrack. I probably need to plug my laptop in. But anyway, I met with the provider, and I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm doing this on my own. I'm no longer getting the compounded version. I'm on the gray market. If you know, you know. Um, I'm doing this independently. Here's what I've done. Here's what I'm thinking about doing. I'm thinking about gearing my dose down a little bit so I can eat a little bit more food so I can start slinging some weights around. And he 100% agreed with me. And he was like, Amanda, that sounds like a great plan. I want you to do that. So I did bump back down. I went back down to 5 milligrams, and I was split dosing too. So that's something I kind of did on my own based on some research. So instead of one shot a week at the 5 milligrams, I was doing 2.5 milligrams twice a week. So like Tuesdays and Fridays. I just make sure I space them out every 72 hours. I won't give myself a shot any sooner than 72 hours apart. Um, but that worked pretty good for a little while. And then here recently, I thought, I'm kind of shifting a little bit. Some life changes have happened. I decided to bump my dose back up, but not to the 7.5. I'm actually doing the 6 milligrams. So I'm doing 3 milligrams on Tuesday and 3 milligrams on Friday. I still do split dosing. That way I'm not getting one whopping dose and it's not hitting me, because I was deathly afraid of the side effects. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm holding steady right between 177, 178 pounds. Um, I would like to drop maybe another 7 to 10 pounds and then maybe go into maintenance. It's just something I'm kicking around. Um, but what I want to say too, the other things that I did along the way was I got back into therapy because mental health is a huge component to this. I made a post on Facebook a while back, basically like, if you're going to keep eating like shit, if you're going to keep old connections and dead connections going, and you're going to eat fast food 5 to 7 days a week, save your money and don't do GLP-1 therapy. I mean, because if you're not going to change your behaviors, yeah, these meds will work for a little while, but what happens when you start to come off the meds? What happens when you go into maintenance and you're not injecting as often and you do a lower dose? You're still going to need tools in your tool belt. You're still going to need to know to prioritize your protein, your fiber. Go to your therapist. Talk to your therapist about your food addiction, your binge eating habits that seem to have been dialed down but can always rear their ugly head. Like, there's a lot of other moving parts. You still need to move your body. You still need to focus on your sleep. You still got to work on your water intake. If you're not getting enough water in, then you're not going to see any changes, right? So if you're even thinking about it, just know that there's a lot of moving parts to it, and they don't work independently. The shots, they can work independently, but not for very long, because there's got to be some behavior modifications with that. Um, so that's been my experience on GLP-1 therapies. Jada's coming to say hi. Um, she must have saw something or heard something. Um, but I know a lot of you, some of you have been following me and some of you haven't. Some details I've kind of just left off for this purpose right here because I wanted to talk freely about it and without judgment, without being censored, because there's so much censorship going on these social media accounts. You can't even say Tirzepatide. We have to abbreviate it and shorthand it. You can't say semaglutide. You gotta say sema, so it doesn't. Anyway, censorship and freedom of speech. That's a whole other podcast for another time. But what I also want to say to you guys is, if you're going to do this, please go see a provider. Please don't try to do this on your own at first. Get get with somebody, get with your doctor, get with your holistic provider, whoever you trust that you think would want to have you on board with these drugs if you can benefit from these drugs, because they are not for everybody. There are some exclusions. There are some people that have no business on these. Okay? I'm going to quit yapping now because it's been 35 minutes, but I just wanted to share my story, my little tidbits. And if you have any other questions, feel free to DM me, but just know that I will not give medical advice. I will not give you recommendations on dosing, or I might tell you where you can get it on the gray market if you're really nice. But I always recommend going through a provider first so that way you have the hand holding and the guidance initially. I do things on my own though. I do my own dosing, I do my own reconstituting. I do use an app. I go to a website to help me with my math, with my calculations. But everything I do is independently. I am aware of the risks. I do understand that, hey, what I take is not FDA regulated, but there are some FDA regulated options for people that do have a diabetes diagnosis along with obesity that want to play it safe. So, that being said, I'm going to end this, and I hope that you got something out of this. I hope that I was able to shed some light on some things for you all. And again, my DMs are open, but just know I'm not going to give medical advice. I want you to go talk to your provider and just know that I'm rooting for you. Take care.